President of SAP HANA Enterprise Cloud is going to come up and talk to us. As you can see, the cloud is the path to the intelligent enterprise. The cloud is the one and only true path. He's gonna discuss why you should be thinking in this direction. So Dilip, come on up and knock him out.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I think people are busy after lunch, I think. So let me introduce myself. I am Dilip, responsible for HANA Enterprise Cloud at SAP. And I think the session, I'll try to get you a feel of more from an enterprise software angle, more from the enterprise world and how it is moving towards the intelligent enterprise. That is the theme of the sessions. First of all, thanks to the Cloud Expo team for inviting. It has been a pleasure coming here. I think, as I said, I'll try to give you my point of view on this topic and then would be more than happy to take a few questions if you have certainly on this topic. Now, if you look at look at the European history, and there was a period of renaissance in those periods between 14th century to the 17th century, if you look at it in detail. And this was a period where a lot of topics which were non-relevant in the past, like the art, the politics, the architecture, the science around it, actually flourished. And that was a time where you saw a lot of art which was coming from Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci, and all those things became more prominent and people are started realizing the value out of it. And I think the most interesting part in that period, if you look in the detail between the 14th century and the 17th century, was it's not about the flourishing of the individual pieces of art, literature, science, and all those things coming together, but it was actually a period where a lot of things were coming together, and at those intersections, whether it was an intersection between the politics and the art or the literature and the art, it's where the innovation was predominantly happening. And that's where you're able to see that a lot of creativity and the innovations came in during those period of time. Now you look at the modern history today, and you see a lot of technology coming up. Sometimes you feel that it is changing very, very fast, but you still feel a lot of things are flourishing at this point in time, whether it is a mobile world, whether it is the data explosion that is happening, whether it is the social media explosions, what is happening. And I think what I'm trying to tell is that this is a period where a lot of creativity and innovation which will happen, but it will happen at the intersections of a lot of these topics. And I think that is predominantly what I'm going to cover as a part of the section. Now, if you just generically, why is it moving on? Slides. Okay, so maybe let me continue. So I think, so what is generally happening is if you look at the industry, which is irrespective whichever industry you work in, you always find it very, very difficult in the sense of what is creating those changes. The innovation is happening in the first, as per in the industry itself. It is happening at the segment or a particular area where you're operating. It is also operating in the environment around it, and there are a lot of things which is changing across. So I think if you look at holistically, everything around you is changing. Everything is changing. And I think maybe I just click on the next one. And I think the reason why I say this is expanding and changing is because all and every area around the industry, the environment, the industry, and all the parameters across are changing. And it is very important to realize that where do you start from? I mean, if I look at it from a pure customer point of view, and I'm a customer or I'm an individual, I want to really find a way, where do I start creating those innovations and start creating those value where I can be differentiating myself compared to other competitors. And I think that is a fundamental philosophy which is happening. Now look at 5 years, 10 years down the line, or 5 or 10 years before, actually. When we were an ERP vendor had only one competitor. They used to compete with an ERP vendor outside. You had a database vendor, and database vendor used to compete with a database vendor outside. The same applies with the infrastructure and a lot of these topics. Now what we are seeing today is very different. There is an innovation which is happening in the industries. So the industry boundary is not restricted to the area which they operate, but they are going and further expanding their boundaries. Same applies in the mobility world, the same applies in the social media world, and the same applies in any industries. In this example I've shown is in the automobile industries. So what is happening is each and every industry is trying to further expand their horizons or their peak and going out of their way. And that's the reason why you see that a lot of the competitors or a lot of the people who feel they only operate in a database world are no longer restricting themselves to be restricted towards that particular piece, but they're expanding their area. Example, the search companies want to go into an enterprise world segment. Why? Because they're expanding their area and they're entering into the different territory. The same applies with the few infrastructure players. I mean, look at Microsoft. Microsoft wants to go into more and more into an Azure play or an hyperscaler play where they can compete and get a bigger mass of the piece. And you see more and more of this happening. But I think the most interesting part, in my opinion, is not what is the big companies going to expand their piece and expanding into different territory, but it is the piece which I feel it is very, very creative, is I genuinely feel, and that's where the same thing I link with the art when I talked in the 17th century, is the creativity and the innovation is actually happening at the intersections either of the two businesses, at the intersections, or at a completely new different level. And that's the reason why I see a lot of these companies are getting into new business models which was not possible in the past. Simple example is very simple. I mean, Uber came into the business. Why? Because they created a new business model which is at the intersection of a mobile world and a taxi world, or you can call it an automobile world. And they created the model in between which can help them. The same applies with big companies like Apple. They go into a car making zone with an intersection between the mobile world as well as, again, in the automobile world. So you see a lot of these companies which were traditionally running on one single dimensions are actually becoming creative and innovative because they are able to create an innovation at the intersection of the two business or the two industries or the two technologies which you're trying to create. I think one piece we always miss out in this is the days are gone where somebody will disrupt you from outside and your competitor is going to disrupt. Since it is so vocally outside, isn't it easy for someone absolutely new, rather than having certain kind of legacy, be disrupting something else? Imagine a case where this intersection or a business model is created by the company which doesn't exist today, but has identified the opportunities, have an access to all the technologies, knows what are the key trends which are happening, and directly create that product or that intersections which can disrupt. That's why I feel a lot of the startups, a lot of the new companies which are coming in are actually directly jumping into this space and creating the space for themselves and disrupting the model. So all in all, I think I genuinely believe that you see it across the US as well as across the world. I think you will see more and more of the startup disrupting the existing business process or existing business model or creating a completely new distant model which is not possible in the past. Now, I mean, I touched upon the theme of the technology and it's how it is disrupting and you're creating a different model. And same is applied in the world today where it is really moving towards the intelligent enterprise. I mean, if you look at 1960s, I mean, this was the year where you start seeing a lot of industrial automations and all those things. And this was what we called always as an industrial automation space. 1980s saw the PCs which are coming in. We saw a lot of mainframes which are coming in. And suddenly, in 90s, when the internet came in and a lot of users want to use it and all those stuff, you start seeing a lot of the business process getting modeled. And that's where we moved towards the business process automations and all the stuff in the 90s. In the last 10, 15 years, I felt this was, in my opinion, the biggest change was the mobility expansion, the data. I mean, always we generated data, but we found a mechanism to somehow leverage the data and make an influential decision out of it. The big social network became more relevant. You started making decisions on the social network and all those stuff. And that's where people started leveraging, or the companies started leveraging a lot of these topics and started moving towards a digital transformation. The next 5, 10 years is a very clear path where the companies will move towards intelligent enterprise. And intelligent enterprise, by leveraging the machine learning, leveraging the artificial intelligence, just to make sure whatever things you're using, leveraging those capabilities, which was not possible in the past, but it can be done in a far more efficient way, and moving the world towards intelligent enterprise. We will see that path. And it's also interesting to see how does it work or doesn't work still? It's also interesting to see how the human productivity over a period of last 40, 50 years has evolved. I mean, we all know computers. If you look at it, what was the need for the computers? The computers were meant to do a lot of complex transactions. It was a task what we said. But it is no longer the case now. It is the computers not only do the complex tasks, but do also the tasks which are very, very repetitive. That's why you see that a lot of the human tasks which were not possible in the past to be done are getting done by the machine. And the human task, or the high-value task, will be done by human in the future. So I think it's a very interesting slides where we show that the computers have actually evolved from doing only the complex task and moving towards doing more and more repetitive tasks, and the high-value tasks are done by human. The reason why I find it very interesting is I think it depicts a good picture that in the future, a lot of tasks will be done by machine, but still there will be a lot of creative tasks and all those things that needs to be still done by human. And I think that is a path where a lot of the business process and all those things will move towards intelligent enterprise. I think this is where I see it every day. And I think a lot of people would know this. I mean, a lot of people call this as a two-speed architecture. A lot of people call this as a bimodal IT, or all this stuff. I think it's a very simple theory. I mean, you look at a legacy install-based customers. They have done their investments. They have their own machines in place. They have the systems in place. They operate it very, very stable. At the same time, the customer is actually aware of how the technology can be a driver for them to leverage and change the business process and create a really value-added advantage for them compared to other competitors. So they are looking for key processes which can be really taking them to the next level. So you see a two-phase at the customer level. On one side, the customer really wants that I have a system in place. I want to keep it tight. It needs to be stable. It needs to be clear that I will run my core business process on it. But at the same time, I want to also do or start creating certain kind of experimentation, certain kind of innovations, which was not possible in the past, keeping my architecture similar, and making sure that I create those values on the side, whether it is in recruitment area, whether it is in the customer relationship area, or whatever it is. But the customer is looking for a tool architecture to rightly manage it. That's what we are seeing. And when you go into the detail of the topic, you see that the customers who have the existing landscape and they start putting a lot of the cloud components into piece, their landscape becomes very, very fragmented. They have the huge gaps in the technologies, the mismatch of the technologies, the master data doesn't work together, the UI harmonization doesn't work together. A lot of complexity comes with those topics. And that's why I genuinely feel that the world which is going to be taking to the next level would be really putting, how do you manage and somehow take those customers who are on the existing install base, but really take them to the intelligent enterprise. And that's how SAP strategy is also around those topics. So the strategy is how do you take a customer from the existing place into real intelligent enterprise world. And the task is, from my point of view, the intelligent enterprise definition is very simple. It is basically about how do you leverage the human intelligence and machine intelligence, apply them to all processes existing in an enterprise in a way that it creates value to the customer. Now, when I'm talking about this, I'm not talking about that you integrate everything in the past like the big monolith. It has to be a unified systems which create value. But if the customer would also have a choice of still using those individual applications if he wants to use it. The second piece, it will be an harmonized landscape, which basically means the consistency of the data, whether the landscape exists in an on-prem world or in a cloud world, it has to have an harmonized piece. The beautification, of course, can happen, but it's a second step. It is more about the consistency of the UI and all those things. And the last but not the least, I think the customer can still decide, or customer has a choice, irrespective whether it is in an on-prem world or a cloud world, can move into the intelligent enterprise. It has basically three components. I will not go too much in detail. It has three components. It has the component which is the intelligence suite, which basically means gives an option to the customer to have the core, to leverage the individual pieces, whether it is the people management, the supply chain, the customer experience, or spend analytics individually, but can also be rightly integrated in a nicer way. Now, the integrations, we always talk, it's all about the loose integrations. I'm not talking about the integration, which basically is about the connectivity between one system to another systems. I'm really talking here about the exchange of data or the sharing. The exchange of data happens via sharing and not just via the pure point-to-point integration. The second aspect is the platform. I think we agreed very clearly that there has to be a very robust platform if you want to do it. And the platform has to evolve on doing two things. One is basically making sure that if a customer is having an on-prem system, it can be connected to the cloud world. If it has two cloud systems, it should be connected to the cloud worlds. And a customer should be able to also connect to a third-party solutions, and whether the customer is in the on-prem world or the cloud world connected by each other. That's the first topic. And the second topic, the platform has to be very, very rich in terms of leveraging a lot of the machine learning, the IoT services, the artificial intelligence capabilities which are existing in the platform so that you can build the capabilities on the top of it. So all in all, I think what we are saying is, irrespective if the customer is on an old world, which is an on-prem world, it has a path towards going to an intelligent enterprise world via this three element of intelligent suite, intelligent technologies, and a digital platform which is there at the base. The customer can be a new customer which can directly go onto the part of the cloud world, or customer can be an existing customer who can go on the cloud world. Some problems. Can you go to the next slide? So what I'm trying to tell is, my last point before I open up for because I think that will be the far better way to answer this. I think the world will move towards intelligent enterprise. The world is moving towards intelligent enterprise. You will see more and more of the existing task which was done by human will be done by machines. Not only on the topics which were, it will have an impact on every business processes. It will have an impact on everything what you do around it. It will have an impact on the decision making what you have done in the past, which was not possible in the past. So the important question is, what is the I part in the intelligent? And I think for me that is very critical for people to understand. I think a lot of people talk about artificial intelligence and human intelligence. I always tell, artificial as a word, artificial. It means that the real brain is with human, and it remains a part of which can be very, very creative. So I think the only ask I have is, when this world is moving to an intelligent enterprise, a lot of the work will be done by machine. Try to be really the Leonardo da Vinci of this generation to create and use those capabilities on identifying those high value-added tasks which can really differentiate us in generations compared to what has happened in the past. And I think that is the most critical part, what I saw. And I think, and that's why I see that the world moving to intelligent enterprise, but the role of the human still remains very, very relevant. I stop here and would be more than happy to take a question and answers.
I think it's working. I have to get far away from the speakers to avoid the feedback. Is there other questions?
Yeah.
No, we got one right over here.
Thanks for the presentation. Can you speak to SAP's work in blockchain?
Work in blockchain.
Yes.
So what we are trying to do is, it doesn't matter in the blockchain area so what we're trying to do is, I think we traditionally have a very, very long business processes. We're looking at, in the digital core, we are looking at all the business processes which exist for last, whatever, 10, 15, 20 years. We're looking at all the areas where you can really apply machine learning capabilities, the blockchain learning capabilities, specifically in the finance area, and try to identify those things which you can relevant and make sure that it creates an impact. So a lot of these capabilities, what we're trying to do is putting this in the platform. The reason why, very simple, we're putting in the platform is we just want to leverage all these capabilities across all applications. What has happened in the past also is we were doing few of the examples, but this was predominantly targeted towards few particular applications. But we're trying to put all these capabilities into the platform so that all the business processes can be replicated and can be done as a part of the blockchain. We have one particular example. It's very difficult to share, or maybe if you want, can share with you outside. But over a period of next 2-3 years, you will see a lot of the business processes getting intelligent, which leveraging a lot of these capabilities and trying to make a big difference in this area. I don't want to speak on that particular area.
Any other questions? Scanning the room. We got one. Excuse me, I'm going to barge my way over here. Sorry about that, guys. Thank you. Here we go.
We can meet halfway. Hi. Great presentation. I really believe what you said about the hybrid solution, that the human brain is still a very crucial part of the intelligence as a lot. I represent a startup retailers and have a question regarding how SAP it's working with the startups, because that's very often the case, that the innovation, and as you showed, the areas where startups are targeting their services cannot be tackled by huge organizations very often because of the decision process and so on. And how SAP it's moving towards this direction.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think good question. And I tell you a very simple example is, let's say in India, I come from India, we have a very big facility, which is 8,000 people, and they work on the core. And you rightly mentioned, I think the bigger problem comes in is when you have 8,000 people who are working on research and development, you find it very difficult. You just land up in a situations where sometimes it becomes too difficult going through the processes and all the stuff. At the same time, we also want them, this all 8,000 to be entrepreneurs. And try to think like an entrepreneur, do the things like an entrepreneur. So what we said is that we started our own accelerator. We have an own accelerator program where for last 3 years we are working on this program. We have close to, I think, 35 of the startups who have passed through this program. And the purpose why we're doing this was what you exactly said, is we want the startups to come and work into our campus. The two benefits the startup gets, and there are a couple of benefits SAP gets. The two benefits startup gets is, what I felt is, the startups typically lack, they're creative, they're good, but where they struggle typically is how do you scale this up to the next level. That's where the big companies like SAP can really help. They know the process and all those things. The second area where we felt that the startup leverages a big company like SAP, was mainly around the skills and the expertise. Example, how do you manage the security? How do you make sure that legally you are complying? The lot of topics on the design topics where you can't spend so much time and all those things. And where SAP gets a benefit is we make sure that our people learn what is happening outside, and they are not like, okay, our world is an SAP world, but also learning what is happening in the outside world, work together with the startup, the community, as well as the startups who are there who can create new products. In the last 3 years, I can tell you that I think it's a phenomenally success program. A lot of startups are going together with SAP on a go-to-market, specifically identifying those topics. And I think there's another area where the startup look for the big companies, how do you access to the go-to-market and all this stuff. So I think SAP realizes the value the startup creates. Example, what I said, I mean, there are a lot of companies who can generate. So we want to partner with them. We've always been successful because of our ecosystems. And I think the companies, new companies, and the companies who are there, I mean, together with the partner, we try to take it to the next level. So all in all, I think we try to be working together with them, because I really feel that they create more meaning out of a lot of topics, which is very, very difficult in certain parts of a big organization. And at the same time, I think they also leverage SAP to help them in a go-to-market piece, as well as on a scale-up piece. I hope I answered your question.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Once, twice, 3 times? I guess not, but if you do have questions you'd like to address to Dilip privately, please feel free to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.